a couple hours early because had some numbers move out there today. So we thought we'd get on and kind of dissect it a little bit. Then we also had a viewer that asked me if I could do a little bit of a deep dive in the 300 to 500,000 range. So I want to do that. I try to answer these questions when I can. And then I also want to let people know that you and I and the group next Thursday at 5, we're going to do a segment on do's and don'ts. In other words, I had a first-time home buyer say, can you kind of tell us what we should do and shouldn't do as first-time home buyers? And I thought, well, that applies to any buyer, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Anybody. Yeah.
So I thought, next week we're going to be like a panel thing. You're going to tell us from a loan perspective what people should watch out for. And then we're going to have Jessica, Ruby, and Jackie talk about things that they've seen that have worked as far as negotiations, what to do, what not to do, because there's some certain strategies out there that are sometimes they get pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll try to do a little bit deeper dive. I mean, a lot of people have seen on Facebook, first time home buyer seminars or webinars, whatever. But I was just going to try to do a deep, maybe hit on a few points that trip people up, maybe during the home, purchase process with the financing. Just maybe a little bit lower level or a little bit deeper dive on a few topics.
Well, this week, obviously, the election. Everybody has been waiting
for
the election. I don't want to buy or I don't want to sell until after the election. Well, I got a text earlier in the week, so I was well aware of it.
What election? There was one?
There were a couple people running, and one of them won. So, so now the question is, okay, you waited. Now, what do you think? So hopefully people tell me in the comments, you have the result now. So where's your head at? Should we wait more? Did you get the answer that you wanted? And I got to say, when rates popped up after the election results went in, it kind of took me by surprise. Did it surprise you?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, obviously if Trump, after we knew that he won, I think both candidates have been kind of on the inflationary side in terms of spending. I mean, they're both going to be spending. So I think that's what really probably triggered it.
So it probably would have gone up no matter who won.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, my forecast that said that the stock market's going to go up after the election because they're just damn glad it's over came true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but today you had some good news. I'm sitting here looking at 6.98. It was 7.13 yesterday. And you're seeing some of that relief as well. So is that because of confirmation of the central bank today saying they're going to go down a quarter point?
Yeah, I think honestly, just there's so many things coming out this week, the Fed, the election. I mean, it's anybody's call. I mean, where rates have gone. I mean, I think we've seen a short-term peak here. I mean, we had a great day today on the 5.5% coupon. That was up 49 basis points right here. So half a point. So, there's basically kind of a big, as this says here, the big non-Fed related rally. Because you had the Fed. I mean, there was not as much jockeying probably with the Fed because everybody was waiting for the election. I think that kind of took the front and center stage. So, rates have kind of, maybe short-term peaked out here. Here's the 6. These are prices, obviously inverse related to the bond. So we've kind of seen this settling out here. We've had some pretty interesting, this kind of shows you the whole week. I mean, bond price, rates and prices go down. So rates are going up here. We've had some interesting days. This is the last 2 days where rates have come down. Yesterday and today, so we've seen some good comeback here the last couple of days, but it's been very it's just hard to put a finger on it. I think we've seen
It's
it.
hard. It's hard for me, Pat, to have too much optimism on lower rates going forward at
Yeah,
this point, simply because of debt. I mean, I'm losing that optimism of
I
seeing
am
things
too.
in the lower sixes again, and and I'm not the well versed on it. I don't study the charts every day. And I'm in a moment. I want to share a chart on
Good. Let me just
interest
jump in quick.
rates.
I think I
Yeah,
totally agree. I mean, jump in quick. I mean, just before I forget, I agree with you. I mean, I think I was at short-term optimism when we started to see rates back in September. The refinances in the high fives. We've kind of lost that for a bit. I think eventually we will get there, but I think it's just going to be a lot of tug and pull, month by month. And I think the Federal Reserve, once there has just been a lot of commotion, a lot of confusion. I mean, I try to read this stuff and you try to get some type of sense of what's going on. There's way too much information coming through the market with the election, Trump, what he's going to do. It's going to take a period of time, a settle out period. I think rates are just going to kind of play around here in these ranges until we get more, maybe the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 months, we get things settling out with his administration and the Federal Reserve. We're still seeing the effects of COVID the last 4 or 5, the last 5 years. I mean,
well,
this
I
is
wanted to share this with you real quick, Pat, because people are listening to us over in the financial markets, because they said here Fed policymakers make sense of recent data, including a muddled jobs market. Now, where do you think they got the word muddled?
from us.
No, you and I. We've been saying that things were going to muddle along for a while, and they've been doing that. So we just have such a large reach here. Um,
Well, that's
but
the thing. I mean, you saw the jobs report come out. There's what, 12,000. I mean, they're created what was it, 20? What was the job number? 12,000?
12,000 projected 113,000, and that's
Yeah.
probably got a lot of noise in it.
Yeah. There's a lot of noise everywhere. But I think from an interest rate standpoint, I think you're seeing a ceiling of low sevens. I think rates will kind of kick around here. I mean, right now, just pulling up my rate, just to go back to the rates that scenario that I always pull up. Let's see here. I'll just use Union Home. That's a lender that I use. I mean, they're 699 is a cost of $700. Like you said, back over a month ago, we were seeing 6 and 8. It's still going to be some time to get there because you're talking about. Let's see here, discount points is 2.5 points. We're going to have to see a nice run on the bond market to get back in the low sixes. So we may just muddle around here again for the next couple months. And like I said, I think looking, next March, April, May, June, it looked like rates were going to be selling down before we all saw this commotion. But I think the water's been churned up here. I think we'll settle it out. And I think they'll settle in the mid sixes, and hopefully we'll see another float down. We saw some good activity, in the low sixes, high fives. But with they got to get everything squared away, though. I mean, on the budget, I think that I've seen a lot more talk the last couple of weeks about the federal budget deficit.
Well, remember, I'm old enough to remember Paul Volcker sitting in front of Congress and telling them, you got to cut back your spending. I can only do so much. I remember Alan Greenspan testifying before Congress. He was hard to understand because he talked at a 30,000 level, but he was hammering them on the debt. And Chairman Powell, he only made a veiled reference about the debt once in a meeting, and this is where we're at: 35,979 billion. Interest on the debt is now higher than the national defense, and so that's going to hold rates higher for longer until at least the bond market gets a sense that somebody's going to start doing something about it. And that's going to be a while. I mean, now Powell also said in an answer to a question that he said it's going to take a while because people are talking about, well, when will people feel better? You say that inflation's down, but it's still hurting my wallet. And he said, well, it's going to take time for wages to grow. And I expect to see sustained wage growth. And that's what people are waiting for in the housing market, along with the combination of sales prices coming down. Some people want it to come down immediately. Some people are patient enough to want it to come down gradually, but even though, if you look at our ticker down below, we're down below 2,400 new contracts for the past 7 days. A lot of that again is for the election. They sat this week out, but we were running about 2,500, and so active listings are peaking this week, and they're going to start coming down as we get to the holidays. But I wanted to show you this because I had a comment from one of our viewers, and it was a very good comment. And he said, well, it should have been easy to predict that rates were going up after a Trump victory. And if we look back historically, and so I did, and I don't find it that easy. I think like right here, this little red dot, that's the election in 1980. And well, our inflation was nuts. So the rates went climbing up. They came back down. They thought things were improving, and then they went absolutely crazy because they came down too soon. And so you can see that rates peaked up there. Now you go from 80 to 84, and it's kind of hard to find the actual number. If I look, there's November 9th. There's where rates were November 9th. They went down, but they were already on a downward trend. Now, 88, which was another election, right? So let's go to November 88. They're sitting there at 10.53. They went down slightly and turned around and came up. Then you got 92. And here's 92, November. I got to move really slowly on this because I had it. One more. Right in there. They kind of went up a hair, but they were already going up. 96. Can you see? It's hard to say, oh, yeah, after each election.
They did spike in 2016. They did spike after Trump got in.
Well, let's look at that. Let me shrink this chart here like this, and I'm going to go to November 2016. So if that's the case, when Trump came in and rates went up, there it is right there.
Yeah.
So they were at 3.54. They very quickly went up to 4.32.
Yeah.
So will we mirror that? Now, we can't look at 2008. We can't look at 2020 because there was a collapse. There was a pandemic. But, is this the pattern that we think we're going to see simply because Trump was elected? I don't know, because we didn't have that level of debt either.
Yeah.
So maybe that adds to the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, Renee. Welcome. So it's that's the problem with historical data. You just don't know.
Well, we're in a definitely a different time frame that we've ever seen in the last couple of years with COVID and craziness of this election. Whether you liked him or not, he's here. I think his policy is based on what he says he's going to do. I mean, oil and gas. If he does, my biggest thing, not looking politically, but just looking from a policy standpoint, if he does start drilling, or if he does make oil and gas cheaper, inflation will come down on its own.
Yeah,
but it's not going to come down overnight. But I think that's going to help. That if obviously we see increased wages overall. I mean, like we said, the average family has seen, their costs have gone up dramatically every month, just on everything. So I think if that does start to come down, that will help the average Jim and Mary Smith.
Well, we did get a comment from the Cromford report today saying mortgage rates have reacted to the election results by moving higher despite the near 100% certainty that the Federal Reserve will fund rate by 0.025, drop the rate, cut the rate. And yet they went down after this writing. Typical 30-year fixed rate 7.13 today. And as you can see below, it's gone down to the high sixes again. It's right where it was about a month ago. And it says, this is obviously negative for housing demand and adds more worry for sellers who are already coping with supply. But then they said, the good news is supply appears to be peaking around 21,400 to 21,500 active listings without a contract. We currently see little evidence that the count to go beyond this range before the year end. And that's what I'm seeing on my 7-day moving average and I'm seeing on the charts. And here is one here where it's showing this is how many active listings we have in the 300 to 500,000 range, Pat. 7,656. And last year we only had 5,000. So there is about 5,600. There's more competition out there for sellers in that price range.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Jackie. We kind of surprised you with this. We decided at last minute to get on and yak. So glad you're here. Sebastian says drilling will bring down the cost of shipping and production, will help with clothes and produce and maybe even new builds. I'm not sure it will drop housing prices. A lot of moving parts with housing prices. I agree with you there. If I go out and look at the listing success rate, 3 to 500,000, it's considerably higher than other price points. I think the price point that's getting hurt the worst is 500 to 800. Now I'm going to drop that in here. So they have a listing success of 69 and now it's 61. Oh, that's everybody. So let me go back to that again. 600 to 800,000. There's 62. So that lower price range has a higher success rate by about 7 points. If I look overall on all prices, we're down to 61, but that's a drop.
Mm-hmm.
This is telling you that only 60% of the houses are actually having a successful contract. And that's, compared to where we were. I mean, sometimes these are holidays. Okay. But we were cranking along pretty good here in 1991, 93%. I don't want to get back to that. 91%, 93% in 2021, I meant to say.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes my mouth gets ahead of actual numbers that are on there.
I know the feeling.
Supply, months of supply for the total market's 3.7. If I focus on the price range that we were asked to look at, which is, come on, you can do this here, 300,000 to 500,000. We see 3.0, slightly lower. So there is not as much supply in that price range, quite simply because that price range is kind of passed us by. It's only limited to certain parts of town right now. So there isn't a whole lot of activity out there in that price range. Now, I did read the other day talking about listing success rate, and I touched on this just a moment, showing that if you look at and this one kind of confuses me. This is the contract ratio, okay? It's dropped everywhere, but it has gone up. The only place where it's gone up is in these price ranges, which were under 350,000. Well, the following price ranges have seen exceptionally high falls. So they're getting beat down in under 350, between 2 and 3 million, and over 7.5 million. But their success rates increased in the 1.5 to 2 million and 5 to 7.5. So if you're selling in that 1.5 to 2 million range, you're having actually an easy time of it comparatively. If you're over between 2 and 3 million, it's getting a little bit harder. But having shared that, there's not a lot of appetite for real low ball offers in that price point or any price point. Even what we are seeing, as was evidenced by a contract written today, that seller contributions are pretty ripe.
Yeah. They can get, I mean, they're there. I mean, it's a good time. Obviously things have slowed down. If you are looking, you get the seller concession, but things have, which can put you in a nice position for a rate.
Well, when you're looking at, trying to get that price reduction, sellers have, a lot of equity to give you some other perks right now, and they weren't pulling the trigger last year. And they're certainly pulling the trigger now because we're seeing an increase in seller contributions. And even in some of the lower price ranges, they're throwing in, 8, 10 grand.
Yeah. Yep.
They also aren't backing away from buyer's agent compensation either, which that was supposed to be the death of our industry. And here we go. And so I'm going to pull up. So Sebastian here says, good to know. That means I need to bump the asking price of Chandler to 1.5 million. Yeah, that's that 1,800 square foot home with 3 bedrooms. So yeah, you really need to get into that aggressive price range. Your problem is, Sebastian, you've been way too low for too long. And again, as I said last week, I think it would help if you'd mow your lawn. So just throwing that out there.
You and
I
Sebastian
drive
have a
by
thing.
every week. So oh, I love it when you come on, buddy. So seller contributions right now are averaging $9,700, 52.8%. So if
Yeah.
you're listing, expect to be asked to contribute. Now, if I go down the price range, let's go back to the price range I was asked to do a deep dive on, 300 to 350 and up to 500. What happens to that? 68% of those homes are giving you contributions around 9,700 again. So they're not just contributing on the higher end. They're handing it out like candy here. 68% seller contributions. Where is that in relation to history here, Pat?
It's on the low end,
Right.
isn't it? Huh?
Right here. Let me put it up.
Wow.
Incredible, huh?
So it's at the highest point. How many years did it go back?
Goes back all the way to 2015.
So that's the highest point?
That's the highest rate of seller contribution. Now let's look at all price points and see what it does. Well, and I apologize. I thought this screen was showing. That's what I get for looking over here and not checking back over here. So sometimes it's hard to drive the bus and chew gum at the same time. So there's where we're at now. There's only been a few times. Well, there's our record right here.
Yeah.
But we're higher now in seller contributions than we have ever been.
Huh. Interesting.
So when you're writing the offer, you think, okay, am I going to lowball them or do I want to ask for seller's contribution? Your success rate in getting your contract accepted is seller contributions. They're very open to that. Agents are very skilled at asking for that, making sure that's in your offer, and it's increasing the success of selling the house. That you can either have a bargain on your price or you can have incentives, because guess who else is offering a lot of incentives? Builders.
Yeah.
This is the only way you're going to compete with those builders.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, if somebody gets a seller contribution of $8,000 to $9,000, $10,000, obviously, to lower your price, we've said this a million times, $10,000 in a house maybe you might change your payment by about $40, but you get you can get a 2-1 buy down. It's going to change your payment by about $4, depending on your price point, $350, $400 a month. So that is going to get people, on both sides, excited to do something.
What kind of buy downs can I get with a $9,700 contribution rate for a fixed rate? Will that move the bar much?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 2-1 buy down basically, just subsidizes the payment. So, I mean, I figured out.
Well, not the 2-1 buy down. Just can I buy the rate down permanently?
Oh, it's not going to get you that much. I mean, hell, let's just go back to let's just say here, let's go back to my chart.
Okay.
All right. So you got, let's say say I picked this Union Home right here. These other lenders, I mean, I'm not even mentioning their name. I never really used them. So I try to pick up, the lender that's got the top 2 or 3 in my pricing scenario, what their service is like. Union Home, I know we worked with them from a lender standpoint. We love them. They're very quick. They're very easy to work with. So anyway, that beside is, so you got the cost of, 6.875. I could probably expand it. Okay. On a permanent buy down, you're looking $699 is a cost of $700. But if you were to get $8,000, let's say $8,000 would get your rate down from 6.99 to 6 3/8. Okay. So that your payment goes down about $185 a month with that $8,000. But if you do a 2-1 buy down to let's say it's 80, I think the last one I pulled up on a $380,000 home, like $8,700 for a 2-1 buy down. If you start at 6.99, your first starting rate would be 4.99, and you'd be it's probably about a $400 a month difference in payment. Well, I mean, actually, right here, I mean, obviously, $29.99. If you're just a 5 3/8, you're looking at a $470 a month difference right there at 5 3/8. But your first year payment would be $499. So basically, it just subsidizes the payment. That's where I think the power of the 2-1 buy down is. I mean, once you do the permanent buy down, okay, let's say Joe Smith says, "Hey, I want to use that $8,000 just to do a permanent buy down to 6 3/8." You're basically giving the money, that $8,600 to the bank. You don't get that back. On a 2-1 buy down, you're just subsidizing the payment. So if you use it for a year, but you've got some money left in that account, they'll use that for principal reduction on your if you do a refinance. 2-1 buy down just makes, I think, we're back to that. I think it makes a lot of sense with rates kind of popping up short term. If we can see rates, hopefully the dot plot on the Federal Reserve, I think they had it down to 3.5 by May. So if I'm not mistaken, the last dot plot,
that's pretty aggressive.
I think it was 3.75, somewhere around there. I think it was about a point lower. So, I mean, if Trump can do what he says he do to reduce the inflationary pressures, we might see rates float down. But just to answer your question,
3.5 is not mortgage rates, just to clarify for the audience.
Yeah, no.
3.5 is the Fed rate.
Fed rate, yeah. But in my heart of hearts, if somebody was to say, you make a prediction, what do you think? I think if we can get rates, it'd be nice to see. This is my opinion now, but if we can see rates low to mid 5s, consistent, steady, that seems like it's a sweet spot, for everything.
I'm not holding my breath for that to happen this upcoming year. I'm not. I did find Sebastian's listing here. That it's clearly worth $1.5 million. It's just on the window coverings alone, and I think he's got does the laptop convey? So I'm not sure. And he got a nice entertainment center there in the background. But we do like to promote some of our subscribers' listings here on the channel. So housing moves like molasses. Whatever Trump does will take time to take effect.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's I spoke about last week, talking about, well, we want to build 4 million homes. So I go, okay, let's say you do. You got to get it approved. That's 6 to 9 months through Congress if they agree. And then it's 1.5 years for them to get permits and start digging dirt. And Sebastian wants to put high-end antiques in there, including
not to bust on her, but she's the way she presented that, like she was just going to snap the fingers and 4 million homes are going to pop up next year. I mean,
home permits and building are all done on the local level. So I don't know what the federal government was going to be able to do about that. It's all on the local level, unless you do it through incentives for home builders. On a national level, you could do that. But I think not through regulation.
The federal government can, certainly on the lumber, the restrictions on lumber, the prices there, they can have some effect there from an overall federal standpoint, as far as, these restrictions on maybe on logging or, just the lumber supply, like I said, once again, oil and gas, lumber has to be delivered to the home, from the Northwest, everything. If he does what he says he's going to do in oil and gas, I think you'll eventually see this whole pressure valve be loosened up on the inflation side.
Well, and Sebastian's right. It moves like molasses. I mean, we're seeing movements in pricing now that have taken place over about a 4-month period. And the pricing hasn't been that aggressive. It's showing up more so in buyer concessions, than it is in actual prices. We have list pricing. Let me take a look at this here and showing you the 6-month view. Let me pull this up. I don't like that chart. Bear with me here. List price per square foot. I share this a lot, but we just want to see if there's any movement. And this is where we are here. We started the year at 368 Today we're at 357. So that's an average list price per square foot. And when I took out anything over $1 million, let me put this in and take out over $1 million, that chart is just flat. People are not lowering their prices to the degree that we would think they were. See, they're right there. But we've increased in days on market. So they're hanging in there. It's not getting them the net result that they want, but they are hanging on their list pricing and increasing the amount of money they're contributing at closing. So it is showing up, may not be showing up in the line on the ledger that you would like to do. Fed government sternly build more houses. That's all they have to do. They just have to say, hey, build more houses. I agree with you. Or states. Right? It's what's that called? Fed speak?
Yeah, exactly.
We're thinking of lowering rates, and rates just go down automatically because they just said it. So that's where the market is. So, well, I appreciate everybody jumping in here with us today. It was a little short notice, and we just wanted to go over a lot of things that we were seeing. And I want to encourage you to show up next week when we start talking about the do's and don'ts for home buyers. And we can talk a little bit about home sellers as well, but that might be a separate topic. But there are some things that can really help if you're waiting and trying to figure out your window to get in. We want to let you know what helps you, and even more importantly, what hurts you. Because there's some things that you can do that we just go, ooh, I wish you hadn't done that.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't have bought that car.
No kidding. Yeah, I think we'll see what happens on the rate. I mean, we've seen obviously a short-term run in rates, but I think we will see some settling out here. We're past the Fed, the elections. Hopefully things will settle down and we'll see a period. Like I said, we've seen a spike from September 16th, from the low of like 364 on the 10-year to 433. So, last month and a half. So it's been, I think we're going to see some selling out here eventually, hoping to.
Well, it's going to get slower. Going to get slower in the industry as we get now towards Christmas. It's just going to wind down. I've got 2 more classes to take for my continuing education. Looks like I'll have time to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So 3 hours each. So,
yeah.
All right, Pat, we'll have a fantastic day and take on the weekend.
Yep. See you everybody.